When I went to go to an ayahuasca retreat, I found a system called the Gene Keys. And I've been working with it over the past 11 months, and I find it super helpful. So I just wanted to share it with the world. This setup specifically is from what is called the activation sequence from this wisdom, which is developed from the I Ching. It's thousands of years old. It is mind-blowing if you happen to get into it. But the idea here is that every shadow contains a gift. So every place of our behavior that is coming from a wounded pattern or that is showing up in a way that we know isn't truly us, we want to run from that. We want to turn away from it. We want to hide because it's shameful, or at least it can be. It was for me. But in reality, those are the things that we need to train our awareness on, because inside that shadow is the seed of a gift. The seed of a different way to use that energy. You just haven't learned how to do it yet. And so Gene Keys breaks those energies down into 3 different components. There's the shadow, the gift, and the city. The shadow being the lens that our ego puts on things that tends to have a negative turn to it. It's our wounded patterns. The gift being the greatness that comes from that. For example, one of my shadow patterns is expectation. And the gift that comes from expectation is learning detachment. Then after the gift is the city, which is essentially, it's an old Sanskrit word. It's basically the divine embodiment, or the godlike version of whatever that energy is. Now, the activation sequence itself is broken into 4 what are called spheres, and then 3 pathways. Each of these spheres represent a different layer of you and your awakening, essentially. So going from the top down, this top sphere is what's called your life's work. And that is what you are here to do in the world. And that could be what you're here to do internally inside of yourself, or what you're here to do in service for the world. In fact, it's both of those things. Then we come down to the sphere of evolution, and he used to call this the sphere of challenge. But this is the thing that continues to push you to evolve, because it's going to continually show up as a challenge in your life. So this is the thing that if we can deal with the karma that's being dealt to us in a gift or even a city, as opposed to being locked into that shadow pattern, because this is the thing that's going to show up again and again, and it's going to be the proverbial sand in the oyster. It's always going to be an irritant to you until you can learn how to use that irritation for fuel. Then we get into your radiance, which your radiance is what starts to shine through. It's the light that's in you that's dying to get out into the world, but has been stuck up until this point in this pathway of challenge. And we'll come back and talk about those pathways in a second. But this is just your essence. It's what people feel when they're around you, not necessarily when they're directly engaging you, but just like when somebody walks into that room and you have that, like, they have a thing, that's their radiance online. Then we come down and we have your purpose. And your purpose is who you are here to be in the world. That's a very different distinction between your life's work, what you are here to do in the world. This is a way of being. It's just the way that you are while you're doing the things that you're here to do in the world. And your purpose really has a much greater effect on people than the actual doing. It's not about the language, it's about the energy that sits behind that language. That's what makes those super charismatic people so charismatic. It's not the words, it's you can feel what's underneath. Now, another important thing, your radiance and your purpose, those are subconscious. Those are things that you don't necessarily actively choose. Whereas your life's work and your evolution, those are conscious choices. Those are things that are outward. This is doing. This is a veil here. This pathway of breakthrough is behind the veil. It's subconscious. It's what comes through because of your doing. And that's really important. Now, let's talk about these pathways. The pathway of challenge connects the sphere of your life's work and the sphere of your evolution. So your life's work, what you are here to learn and here to do. So mine, for example, the shadow is failure. Man, oh man, is that a big one for me. Seeing that I am not living up to my definition of what I should be in the world. However, the gift that comes from that is preservation. And sometimes these words take time. You need to sit with them. It's why I've been doing this for 11 months and I'm not even close to done. But each time I contemplate, which is the tool that we use to think about these things, which is just a mix almost of attention and meditation, you get a layer deeper. The words mean a little bit more. So the gift that comes from failure is preservation, which means deciding what to focus my attention on instead of worrying about constantly failing, right? There's a big difference between taking actions because I'm worried about something going wrong or deciding on what to focus on and what's important. And that is the gift of preservation. And then finally, the city is veneration, which is just a deep respect for whatever may come. I'll save that for another time. But that's my life's work, and that's a challenge, right? That is a huge challenge for me to see past failure. Also, on the other end of this pathway is evolution. And again, this is the thing that keeps showing up in your life, the challenge that you have to overcome. And if we start to see the gift through the shadow in these two spheres, then we get this pathway of breakthrough. Then our radiance begins to shine through, comes from inside to outside. You start to get this lightness in your life. You start to have emotion again. You start to be connected to yourself. You start to have relationships with people. This system is a living, breathing wisdom that you live. And when you do that, magical shit happens. I can't describe it. You just have to try. Then we get into the pathway of core stability. So yeah, radiance and evolution on either end of breakthrough. Then we get into the pathway of core stability. And core stability is being in your center. Regardless of this evolution coming, regardless of the stuff that you need to do outwardly in your life, regardless of who says this to you or this circumstance happens, you have settled into your purpose. You have settled into your being. You trust in life. Because even when those things come at you that seem to be apparent shadows, you know that turning towards that suffering and training your awareness on it is going to release a gift. And ultimately, done enough times, you begin to embody those gifts and become a divine expression of them. So that is the activation sequence. The last thing I'll touch on is, in addition, there are 64 of these gene keys that might fall into one of these spheres. And they're called the gene keys because this information is coded into your genetics. That's past the scope of what I'm going to talk about here and now, but all of this stuff is inside of you. It's inside of all of us. And in addition to those 64 keys that could be in each sphere, like this one I said is failure, preservation, veneration. This one is the one that's expectation, detachment, and the city for me is celebration. This one is my radiance, which is distraction being the shadow, enrichment being the gift, and intoxication being the city. But each of them has a line keynote. And if the spheres are specific to me, the lines are general themes in which the spheres express themselves. So there's actually 64 times 6 different variations that could be in each thing, and then they all play off each other. So it's all a different, very different experience for each of us. But each of these lines has a different energy behind it. So for example, my life's work, I'm a 6th line, and the 6th line is about vision. It's about seeing the future. It's about seeing where we are now and understanding that and using what's valuable there, but also seeing it as a means to an end, seeing 100 years down the line. Line 5, these are the business people of the world. These are the people that solve problems. These are the manifestors, the ones who just have that thing. They can go far in life, but also have a potential on the shadow side to be manipulators. Line 4, service. Line 4 is about relationships. It's about a community. It's about loving people personally, right? A line 5 is like talking to the masses. A line 4 is talking to you, talking to loved ones, talking to a community, and their goal is to spread the love and to serve everyone around them. Line 3, their job is to engage with new ideas, to try things, to do stuff, to see what happens. Line 2, you flow. You spread the news. You take what comes your way and let it roll off your back. And then line number 1, you are the maker. You are the creator. You hold the quintessence, the base of every idea. And when you think about these lines in order, line 1, you have the idea. You make the idea. Line 2, you flow with the idea. You begin to interact with it and show the world what's possible. Line 3, you now have taken what line 2, you've seen what they've done, and you engage in that way with this thing, but you are very early, so it might go well, it might go terribly. Line 4, you're gonna see what works with those third lines, and you're gonna spread that to the people that you loved, to the people that you care about, to the people in your community. Line 5, you're gonna see what's working at that community level, and you're gonna try and share it with the world. Line 6, you see what works in the world right now, but you hold it very lightly because you know ultimately nothing lasts forever. And so your job is to see what's gonna start the next cycle. That's the activation sequence. That's Gene Keys. This is what the book looks like. There's also some online courses and stuff that go with it, not associated with it in any way. Richard Rudd is the author's name. I hope you find it valuable if you check it out.